You're listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Welcome, listeners, to another episode of All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast here on BQN and the Fandom Podcast Network. I'm your host, Kelvin, and with me today, it's a full house again. We've got Amy, Christos, and Mark. Hello, hello, hello. Feel free to say whatever you want this week. How are you, Amy?
I'm doing good. How's everyone? It's a busy time of year. It's already, going.
Yeah, I can't believe it's December 3rd already. And wow, just the whole year's flown by. But we went right from Thanksgiving to Christmas parties. It's here.
And how about you, Mark? Have you started the festive shenanigans yet?
No. Nope.
Humbug.
Absolutely not. Nope. Not even humbug. I can't. My entire life is on pause with everything. I can't spend a dime because we're sort of, Andy and I are still like in the home buying process here. So I don't know if in a couple of weeks I'm going to be moving or not moving. So I can't buy a tree. As far as Christmas shopping, everybody knows this year I can't do anything because my money's all tied up in maybe possibly buying a house. I don't know. So hopefully in a couple of weeks I'll be really broke, because if all of a sudden I have a bunch of money, well, it just means that I'll be living in this shitty apartment for another year.
Oh, well,
So
Christmas comes every year, so it'll be a sacrifice that's well worth it, I'm sure, to get your nice forever home.
yeah, fingers crossed. Fingers
Yeah,
crossed.
no, I know it takes a lot of money to move too. I mean, just the idea of moving boxes, moving vans, all that stuff. You have to have, and then of course, setting up a new place too takes money.
Yeah, but I have a friend of mine that told me a couple of days ago that if the reverse happens and we don't end up getting a house, which is it's a possibility, everything could fall apart at the end. We don't know, so it's like we're just not talking about it. But hopefully everything works. But if it doesn't, I'm going to take some money and I'm going to get myself a new iPad. I'm going to treat myself. Like, I won't have a house, but I want to get a new iPad. So
Yeah.
it'll be a little salve in the wound.
Yeah. So are you in escrow on a place?
I'm just gonna not talk about it.
Okay.
I don't want to jinx anything.
All right. I understand that completely. About 3 years ago, I was exactly in the same place at this very time, and I was the same way. So, okay, I understand.
Fingers and toes crossed.
Great joy and gratitude.
Oh, it's quite Christmassy in itself, that little jingle.
It is, yes. And no one does it better than Marina.
I know. It's about a week too long, but it's still very
it's
festive.
a little long in the tooth there.
So, listeners, we are going to continue with this, our new feature, where we just give a little shout out to anything in the world of Trek that has brought us a little bit of personal joy or put a smile on our face this week. So I'll kick off myself, if we may. We got the news overnight of the new start date for Discovery Season 5, which is going to be in April 2024. And we got a new cast photo as well, showing all of the team together for the final season. So that's nice that it's now known, and it's a little bit later than we probably wanted, but we're going to have to ration our Star Trek out a little bit now, aren't we, for the next several months? So I'm not too down about it. I'm still happy that it's going ahead. So that's me, the Discovery news.
Yeah, I saw that late yesterday, and got me really excited too. But yeah, it's about 5 months away, and we've already had like about a month of no Star Trek, probably since Lower Decks. And maybe Netflix will start season 2 of Prodigy earlier than that, and we'll have more more new Star Trek sooner.
Mm.
Yeah. Did anybody else
Yeah.
notice too the cast photo? It's while exciting as it was to see it, I'm like, where's Detmer and gang? There's always, they're always.
There's no gold shirts, are
Yeah,
there?
I know. I'm like, come on, man. You got new cast members in there, but you don't have Detmer and yeah. Anyway,
Yeah.
but I'm excited.
And what about yourself, Mark? What have you been grateful for in the world of Star Trek this week?
Oh, I just gotta be happy for my good friend Captain Jeremiah, who his little short that he did, a little stop motion short he made, I guess was picked up and used by Netflix for like an ad for Prodigy coming to Netflix. And there was also an article about it in Screen Rant. And so Captain Jeremiah Brown of the Captain's Couch here in BQN, quite a bit of publicity. And he is just a dear human, and I don't think it could happen to a better person. So I'm really excited for him.
What a lovely thing to say, and very, very true as well. Yeah, I think we're all delighted. And it's really cool as well with the little Prodigy action figures on the bridge. It's a great shot.
Yeah, he's so talented with what he does. It surprises me every time how well done they are.
Yeah, anyone who's done stop frame animation in the past knows you have to have the patience of a saint to do it. It takes so long. So all credit to him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
And what about yourself, Amy? What's put a smile on you this week?
Well, last night I attended a little holiday party with some teacher friends and we did a gift exchange. And the one gift I got was the Women of Star Trek shirt, which I am wearing today. But I mean, of course, they all know I love Star Trek. But what was even more fantastic is she's like, I went through all your Star Trek photos to see if you had this shirt because I didn't want to give you one that you already had. I'm like, what? Well, how thoughtful. And she's like, I didn't see it. So do you have it? And I'm like, no, I don't have it. So the thought that went into this is just above and beyond and even more dear to me than the actual shirt.
It is a lovely shirt, I must admit. So who's it got on it? I can see Troy, 7 of 9, Uhura.
Dax and Janeway.
Wow, love it.
Yeah.
It's missing a certain doctor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've actually seen that shirt before and passed on it because of that reason.
Right. Yeah.
But it looks lovely on you, Amy.
I bet if you turn around, it's got Pulaski on the back.
Speaking of which, I got my new Star Trek Explorer this week, and it's all about Pulaski. I'm like,
yes.
There's a whole article on the character and a whole article on the actress. It's pretty. It's in depth. Probably if you're a fan, don't miss that.
Yeah.
And Christos, what have you been celebrating in Star Trek this week?
So I'm going to give you like a double fold of great joy and gratitude. First off, speaking of great joy and gratitude, some really good friends of mine, they have an annual holiday party every year. It's called Frost and Flannel. And of course, you wear flannel and get drunk and all that stuff. But it's actually always for a really good cause. You basically, they sponsor and put on the whole party, but you sponsor a kid and buy them everything, but you go onto Amazon and get their Christmas wish list and buy them things. So it's a great, just enjoying, like I said, a way to show your gratitude for what you have. But I was at this party last night and just casually talking around and was introduced to a guy named Glenn Hermans, who is an actor, and actually just found his IMDb page. But anyways, he worked for several days as an extra on First Contact, the movie, and was telling me some stories. And he met Jonathan Frakes and was directed by, and I believe he is a Starfleet extra. So I got a little bit of research to do after we're done today.
Oh,
so
yeah,
that was
let us know which scenes he's in once you've watched it and found him.
Yeah, but it's really just kind of really cool, random thing to be at a party, 25 years plus later, and meet somebody who's literally been on Trek.
That's so cool.
I love that. Excellent. Well, listeners, this week, as we've approached a lovely milestone episode, 150, nice round number, we have much to discuss, as said Worf. as we are continuing with our Shore Leave Part 4, and we're going to look at the Deep Space Nine episode, He Who Is Without Sin. Previously covered, we've covered the original series Shore Leave, Enterprise 2 Days and 2 Nights, and Lower Decks Wejdu. So, Mark, would you like to give us a little synopsis of what happens in this episode, please?
Worf said dick. No,
Done.
Worf
And done.
Worf and Dax take a vacation to Risa with Quark. Okay, that was the redeeming moment here in the whole episode. When Quark appeared on the runabout, I was like, oh yes, some injection of some levity. So they're going to Risa. Quark's on board. Lita and Bashir are tagging along, but it's not all Jamaharon on the Pleasure Planet, as the couples have relationship problems to address. Meanwhile, Risa itself has its hands full with a protest group called the New Essentialists. Essentialists? No?
You got it right first
You
time.
got it.
Yeah.
You got it.
Okay, well, there we go.
Fabulous. Thank you, Mark. So let's take a dive on some of the themes, and let's start with Risa itself. What better thing to talk about in our Shore Leave series than probably the undisputed holiday destination in all of Star Trek, Risa. So it's deemed the Pleasure Planet, and I'm just curious, have any of us been on like those kind of holidays before, where it's kind of, it's all about filth and a bit of debauchery, maybe
Right.
it's an 1830s, or Amy's looking like she might have been on a few cruises like that.
I was about to say, isn't that the definition of Star Trek cruise? But I don't think it's all debauchery. I mean, their saying is what's mine is yours. Is that sort of the thing?
All that is ours is yours.
Yeah. So it doesn't have to be debauchery. I mean, the fact that pleasure can mean that, but I mean, there's other ways to have pleasure than go that sexual, sensual route.
Oh, Amy, I love you. Only you could think that this means about offering food and art and crafts. Come on. They're basically saying, if you want it, we'll give it to you.
Yes.
Christos?
So I've been on some trips, including down to Puerto Vallarta or say Key West and whatnot, where yes, it's a lot more free and open, and you're, staying at I've stayed at gay men's clothing optional type places, and yes, it's very Risa-esque. It's a lot of things go. It's a lot very free. It's a lot of it's very Risa. So I'm trying, without getting too explicit here on our podcast. So, but yes, but you're in a bubble. It's very much like when you enter into the places it feels like different rules apply to life, and you get to suspend your day-to-day restrictions. And so I have definitely experienced those environments where it is just like, oh, I'm on vacation and I get to go do something else and be more free with myself.
I love that. I think the way you've described it there is spot on. You guys know I go for my annual little trip to Barcelona, to Sitges, which is a gay resort in itself. And I go with a gang of about 25 guys, and a lot goes on. I'll leave it there to draw your own conclusions. But it is what you say, Christos. You're in this little bubble. You're away from your usual responsibilities, stress, drama. And it does cause you to maybe indulge in some behaviors that you wouldn't normally at home in everyday life. So, yeah. What about you, Mark? Have you ever been on any kind of holiday like this?
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about in my early 20s, I used to live in South Florida, and so that was sort of like I lived on Risa. So
Wow.
I had those experiences then, but I want to talk about a particular experience I had sort of just a few years back with one of my very best friends. His name's Hunter, and him and I just took a trip to Mexico. It was my first time down there. We went to Cabo San Lucas, and it wasn't that we engaged in debauchery or anything. It was just that it was a very free and loose trip without plans. Like we just, we woke up when we wanted to, we did what we wanted to, we tried different food that I'd never had before, which is very exciting to me. Like I'm like, oh, I've never had this before, so I want to try that, especially like it's a local cuisine. And then, I'm afraid of heights. So we went and did like the zip line thing across, one of the canyons. And it scared the crap out of me, but it was a thrill to go outside of my own comfort zone, to try new things, to laugh until I couldn't laugh anymore, with my friend Hunter, who's hilarious. And I don't know, it's just one of my favorite life trips. And yeah, like I said, no debauchery really was involved, but it was just like we still had like that party vibe of just like we're just gonna have fun. We're just gonna do things that we enjoy doing. And so for me, that was a blast. It was a life highlight.
Yeah.
Is this the same guy you previously told us about who you really enjoyed that zip line and you were wrapped around him for dear life?
Yes, exactly. I had my legs completely wrapped around him. My eyes were squinted, almost closed for like the first few, but then as the day progressed, I started slowly opening my eyes a little bit.
Love it. So when you think of Starfleet and Star Trek, it's all a little serious, isn't it? There's space battles, there's wars, there's moral problems going on. So
Yeah.
for our heroes and characters to go to Risa is much like what we've just said of, you do free yourself and become a little less inhibited and have fun. So do we think Risa is a bad idea? Is it a bad influence on wholesome Starfleet officers? Or is it good to release your inhibitions? Christos.
Yeah. This is my answer to this is going to be why I fundamentally have a problem with this episode, because Rise is just a vacation place, right? So, you're running around, let's say DS9 is a space station, but let's just say, Starfleet, starships, we like take Next Generation, for example. You're in a very, sterile, militaristic in a sense, chain of command type environment. And yeah, at the end of the day, just like anything else, you want to go on vacation and you want to go away. And let's face it, it's not quite the holodeck doesn't quite cut it. You know what I mean? You might be in a little bit of a bubble, but you're not free and clear. So going away for, 5 days, 7 days, whatever, to a place where you can remove yourself from that, chain of command environment and just kind of really let your guard down and relax. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think it's actually healthy.
I also agree that it's healthy to release your inhibitions. Plus, it's a different way for you to grow as a person. Like Mark was saying, he pushed himself to go on that zip line because it was a fear, like growing as an individual. It's a place that you can't live there forever. Otherwise, everywhere would be Risa. They have the technology. Why not create more Rises? Because it is a temporary fix status to life. I mean, I just, there's got to be a balance in all things. And if like with Worf, if you're all Worf, then woohoo. Sorry. Okay. Wow.
Sorry, listeners, we're just talking here. Amy's talking, and a bunch of balloons just came up over my image.
What did you do with your hand?
I was just going to talk after you. That's all.
Yeah, I know. And it triggered something.
Christos, your gesticulations are causing Mary havoc.
Amy, what you're saying is spot on. Like I lived in Hawaii for 18 years. And when I first moved there, of course, it's the pleasure place. It's the most beautiful place. It's awesome. It's a vacation dream for so many people. But I lived there for 18 years. And when you're going through school and then you get into your career and you've got a job, it's just like any other place in some ways. You have your day and it loses some of that magic of, I love going down to Key West. I love going to Puerto Vallarta. I don't want to live there though, because I don't ever want to lose it. I go back and forth with Palm Springs, another place I love to go and decompress. And it feels a little magical to me. I could even move there if I kind of wanted to. It's not out of the realm of possibility based on where I am and what I do, but will it lose the magic if I move there? So you have to, like Amy was saying, it's a place of that you go to visit, and it's never meant to be sustainable. It's never meant to be a place you live. It's just a place you go to.
It sounds like we're all very disciplined if we have that level of, being able to experience this joy, like being in the Nexus, like we described the cruise, but then being
Yes.
able to walk away from it. I've seen a lot of people who kind of get a little bit obsessed with that kind of lifestyle and, overdo it to the detriment of either the relationships, their job, etc. So the fact we can enjoy these excesses for that week, that 2 week of the year, and then walk away, I think it shows great restraint. So this is not the first time we've seen Risa. We have seen Risa on TNG in Captain's Holiday and the Game, and we will again see Risa in Enterprise 2 Days and 2 Nights, which is an episode already covered. I just wanted to ask the question, where do you think Risa was best depicted out of the visits that we've had there in Star Trek? Do you think it's in this episode or in Enterprise or in the TNG ones? I'm curious.
Lower Decks.
Oh, when did Lower Decks go to Risa? I've missed that one.
Well, they had a Ryzen district at one of the planets that they went to. And I think you got more of the vibe of what Risa was because they were able to, it's a cartoon, so they can really fulfill the whole district with just all kinds of different aliens and all kinds of different experiences that they could have. And so I liked it there because it just felt a little more filled out, right?
Yeah.
Because even here, it's like you get these sort of close shots and you can kind of see that there's like a beach in the background and what have you. But you don't get these wide, expansive shots of like all of this stuff happening. And like I said, when they went to that Ryzen district on whatever planet in Lower Decks, you could see all of these different shops and all of these different experiences that these people visiting that district could participate in. So I thought that was really well done, really clever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to follow up and say, I think the Enterprise one, just for that exact same reason, Mark, that you were saying, like, we get different experiences with our different characters, right? Hoshi's experience was completely different than the debauchery of what the boys wanted to get into, and then they got kidnapped and blah, blah, blah. But like you're seeing different experiences. And I think the more filled out a place is, the more believable and realistic. So I think, yeah, Enterprise did it best.
Oh,
Yeah.
they get some eye candy in that episode.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll always love Captain's Holiday for introducing it.
Mhm.
But, to Amy's point, whenever you see something and you get more of the backstory, especially when we get backstory in universe, so often things get fleshed out for us in novels and things later. And that's where you find it out. But for Star Trek in production to, over the course of several years, give us more and more background on this place, that's pretty cool. So I like them all, but like I love this one too. We learned about the fortification nets. We learned about why it's actually a moderated place and it's not naturally that. It's kind of a terraformed planet in some ways to be what it is. But for me, that just made it a little bit more holodecky, but that's cool.
To me, I got kind of, and I hope you don't take offense, Amy, but almost like the Vegas vibe of, very, very manufactured, artificial, pumping in the oxygen,
Yes.
keeping the party going. That was kind of what I gleaned from the weather modification aspect to it. So, yeah, which is something we all love.
Yeah, I felt right at home watching that episode.
Okay, so from the Pleasure Planet itself, let's take a look at another theme of this episode, which is the relationship between Worf and Jadzia. So clearly this is early on. They'd only recently got together and they're experiencing the kind of the culture clash and the differences between them. But so a little bit wider than the episode itself, I'm just keen for a show of hands. Are we a fan of the shipping of Dax and Worf in Deep Space Nine? Do we think they're a good pairing? Who wants to start us off? I think you know my answer.
They were a great pairing. That was one of the best things to happen about Worf joining Deep Space Nine. I feel like he was trying to find his footing, like especially that first season he was on. But when they stuck the two of them together, it just made perfect sense. And I thought it made both the characters a little bit more interesting. Yeah, I loved the shipping there.
I also really like Worf and Jadzia, in part because of Worf and Troy, which I have said that I enjoy that relationship because of those opposites attract. And, I think this is sort of the first time that Worf has even considered a non-Klingon, right? Because he had Kalar before, who's, Klingon. So for him to have this experience with Troy and then leave and then go to Deep Space Nine, I think really prepared him for the relationship that he has with Jadzia to make it successful in whatever world successful means in their relationship.
How about you, Christos?
I think they're great together. I think Jadzia being a Trill and her background and all the different lives she's led, and her relationship to the Klingon heritage and Klingon knowledge, it makes it, and her just being kind of badass. I mean, they don't let you never judge a book by its cover, because with Jadzia you're getting a whole lot more than the cover, right? So I think that makes her ideally suited for Worf. What I will say is that it does, I think, poke a hole back into the Worf and Troy thing, because we're seeing that, like, I don't know that Troy would have survived the sexual escapades that are kind of alluded to, with Jadzia and Worf. I don't think that would have been a thing for Troy and Worf. And I think if, although I think Worf and Troy might have been better, I think he would have been less jealous of Troy. But I also think that Troy wouldn't have been able to be all the things that he would want in a relationship physically.
I mean, we did see his jealousy come out ish with him being angry at Riker, right?
Yeah.
All good things.
Mhm.
So there's that thread. So yeah, I don't think Troy could have, like you were saying, held up to the sexual escapades.
Well, that's not Troy.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but I mean, it just opened up Worf to be accepting of Jadzia. And then as you were talking, and as I was thinking, it does great for Worf's character. Does it improve Jadzia's character? Because she pushes him. Does he push her? Does she grow as a character? Is she better because she's with Worf?
Well, Mark, you said you think it was great for both of the characters. So, I mean, that might be a question for you to answer. What, from your opinion, how does Jadzia grow as a character on Deep Space Nine once she's with Worf?
Well, what I noticed is, like, especially at the first few seasons, like, they kept trying to pair or have her bounce off Julian, or like, will they, won't they kind of thing. And I never really liked that. And I'm not sure if they went, I don't remember there being like another character they tried to pair her with. But all of a sudden, especially with her Klingon background and knowledge, and her Trill symbiote used to be joined with a Klingon, I feel like it just sort of made sense there. Then her interactions, with other Klingons when they would come on board the station and be like, oh, my old friend or whatever, I don't know. I think that it was a good pairing. It made sense that she would end up with a Klingon. I think it was sort of alluded to that early on, and then when Worf came on, it was like, oh yeah, this is what works.
Yeah. Although I believe that we're always learning, Jadzia has led several lifetimes, right? And she's a much, much more graduated person than any one of us could be, or anybody we see in her universe that lives a quote unquote normal lifespan, right? So compared to Worf is a child compared to Jadzia in his life experience and whatnot. So I do think it's Worf that needs to actually grow more into that relationship. And Jadzia is very sure of herself, and she knows who she is, and she's firm in that. And that's why she's not afraid to talk to ex-lovers and whatnot, because she she's got her compass and she knows who she is. So
Mhm.
Worf is the one that needs to get past his more, juvenile crap. And that's not a dig on Worf, because, we're probably all around the same age that Worf would be in that, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Mhm.
and I don't claim to know it all, but someone like Jadzia, who's hundreds and hundreds of years old and has that experience, yeah, she would be very mature in that relationship, and he would be immature.
Yeah.
So I've taken a sip of tea, and I find it interesting that you've kind of all three of you have gone in a similar direction there. That you actually enjoy the relationship. I really don't. This is very polarizing for me because it is a relationship between my favorite character in all of Star Trek and my least favorite character in all of Star Trek.
Mm.
I thought
So,
that was Quark.
no, it's really not. I like Quark.
Oh, okay. I just know
I
you don't
uh,
like Ferengis.
I don't like Ferengi episodes. I don't dislike any Ferengi individuals.
Okay.
Yeah, I adore Jadzia Dax. Always have done. She's everything. She taught me everything about fantastic. Just putting women in such a high esteem of the best qualities of being the smart one, the sexy one, in charge, just as good, if not better, than her male counterparts. And that's kind of regardless of the kind of the modern lens of looking as Dax as a queer character, which we tend to do these days because of the gender swaps between hosts. She's just always been my favorite. Worf, which I've said before, is always the character that I just wouldn't want to spend any time with him, because as a gay guy, it would make me feel very internalized homophobia of not being masculine enough, not being a warrior. Everything's got to be about fighting. And he makes me uncomfortable as a character. So to put these two together, I will start by saying I agree with you all that this was good for Worf. How much of season 4 was Worf just kind of wandering around, and what even is a strategic operations officer? You're either strategic or you're operational. You can't be both. It doesn't make sense. So they didn't know what to do with him. To put him with Dax, it was great in that regard. And it could have been good for Dax, because you're right, she has all this history with Korkang and Koloth in Blood Oath and everything else, Klingon. So she would really have buzzed off him and really gone down a great route. But I just feel, and this is probably the writing, she just became Mrs. Worf, and she lost a lot of the shine and sparkle that made her amazing. Now, not in this episode. In this episode, she was really giving it what for, which I loved. But if you will kind of indulge me, I just want to comment on a number of what I see as red flags that were displayed in this episode that we all look for in relationships. And I thought there was a lot of toxicity to Worf, in what I'm not going to go as far to say it was domestic psychological abuse. However, if someone is exposed to these traits over a prolonged period, it's a really bad relationship. So first things first, I always noted that everything had to be about Klingons. Klingon this, Klingon that. You're not a Klingon woman. You would never do that. When did Worf ever show any interest in Trill culture and society? I mean, he even didn't do a very good job of the reassociation rule, because he bedded Esri afterwards. So that was a really big no-no. So everything was on his terms. It was all about Jadzia fitting into a Klingon lifestyle. And then there's just other smaller character traits. The jealousy over her having lunch with Captain Baudet, uh, isolating her from her friends. So his behaviour on the runabout, when he said coming about, setting course for Deep Space Nine, trying to break the bond between Dax and Julian and Quark and Lita by him being the bad guy. It was really embarrassing to her, and she would have been really traumatized by that. The judgmental behavior of Lita and Bashir, has he never encountered anyone in an open relationship before? These things are normalized these days. And then horrified when he finds Jadzia and Arandis stroking a piece of pottery. They were hardly at it, were they? it was just so over the top. So that's my kind of rant, if it's not too strong a word, of I just think there are some really bad toxic behaviors here in this relationship. And if I was Jadzia, I would have run a mile.
Well, I think that was a pretty good breakdown. Yeah, you bring up a lot of things that I was noticing. First off, it is a lot of writing, especially in this particular episode. They had this idea to bring this religious zealot kind of aspect into the Risa story and whatnot, and they needed a main character to kind of get on board. So they radicalized Worf, and to a point that I didn't even believe it anymore. I mean, Worf is going to sabotage a Federation planet, their weather,
really
and
bad.
their weather, and hand that technology over to them, to zealots and whatnot, and extremists. And I mean, Worf could have and maybe should have been court-martialed for his actions in this episode. I'm sorry. I'm like, and since when does Mr. Honor, Mr. By the Book suddenly, instantly, in the course of like a 40-minute episode, become completely okay with sabotage and breaking the rules to make his point? I mean, people could have died in that. It just starts raining really bad. Like, people could have been out hiking and got flooded out. They're causing earthquakes. I mean, people could have died because of Worf's actions in this episode. And because it boils down to him having a tiff with Jadzia, I just feel like that is just a fundamental problem with this episode. Now, you make some good points that go across the whole relationship of Worf and Jadzia. And you're right. It did water down her character for the rest of her run on DS9, because whenever it was really about her, it was about Worf, like the things I have to do to get married and convince the house that I'm, willing to do it. And it wasn't really about Jadzia being this great scientist and, skilled officer who did all these other things. It did water her down, but it gave her something to do, and it gave Worf something to do, because up until this episode, Worf was the grumpy guy on DS9 complaining about everything, and just like the disgruntled worker. But yeah, I know that
just have a general problem when writers take a female character and their only perceived storyline is to either marry them off or get them pregnant. It's like they don't see that women have so much more to contribute. And I think that is one of the hallmarks of Deep Space Nine not having any women writers in all of its cast. And don't get me wrong, Kira and Jadzia are my two favorite characters in Star Trek, and they did a generally really good job with them. But just having that lack of feminine touch in the creative side of the process, I think they suffered a little.
So, you know how when you watch shows over and over again, and it depends on where you are in your life, when you're like, oh my gosh, I never noticed this before. So that happened with me watching this episode, specifically when Jadzia was talking to Worf, where she's like, you don't trust me. And he's like, well, I do trust you, but I don't trust Captain Bidet, And I'm just like, okay, so then you don't trust me that I can handle a situation like Captain Bidet would, in your mind, try to suggest. You don't trust me. That's what it comes down to. And I just, you guys are so good to my support, because, I sent these random texts, and I went on this date and then went on another date with this guy, and we were having a really good time, connecting, talking. Oh my gosh, so much fun. But I'm 50 years old. I have a life. I have friends, and some of those friends happen to be male. So I was telling this guy, oh yeah, I met up with this friend who came in from out of town. He and I, and he's like, what? And just totally shut down, freaked out. And well, I don't want to be just some boy toy or something like that. And I'm just like, really? I said, I was telling you about this guy. Like, I was coming up front saying, this is just a friend. And he totally freaked out, went all Worf on me. I don't trust him. And yeah, okay, fine. That is not the person that I need. So like you were saying, Kelvin, like Jadzia is putting up with a lot. And when I just heard her say, well, you don't trust me, and she continued on that, I'm like, preach on, girl, because that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I think this is where some of the story, and even in the 90s, probably this probably didn't age. It didn't probably go well, but it certainly hasn't aged well, And then he's basically playing that in like 1950s, 1960s stereotypical male, and it's like I know he's supposed to be a Klingon and with different rules, but he doesn't even, as Jadzia points out, he doesn't even act like a real Klingon. So he tries to have his cake and eat it too. I'm a Klingon, but I don't do all the things that Klingons do. I mean, Guinan's pointed this out to Worf before, and now Jadzia pointing it out. You don't act like a Klingon. And I do like that we get a little bit of backstory about Worf and what happened to him as a child when he accidentally killed somebody because of being Klingon, and how he has to restrain himself. But I don't think that quite adds up to the jealousy behavior. I don't think that
Indeed.
excuses that. That's just like to Amy's point, not trusting your partner, like Amy or Jadzia. You're not strong enough to resist another man's advances. Like you're lesser of a person, and it's just that sexist type thing. And man, I love that I podcast with a bunch of feminists because that's really cool. And Amy should do you should love that we support you so much.
Here's
But it is.
Here's a group of men saying how women should behave.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like I get mad. I have family members that I look at as way too passive, they don't stick up enough, and they're in the way that they behave in a relationship. It's too submissive, and it's like, no, you don't. What are you doing? But it's like whatever. That's a choice. And maybe that's the guy that they need. That's the woman they need to find. But most women these days, just like it's 50-50. You gotta. If you want trust, you gotta trust.
Isn't it a little strange though that like all of the women that Worf is around throughout TNG and Deep Space Nine all are just these really fun, free, living individuals, like even his mom, like Miss Rozhenko was all like bubbly and fun and cool on the Enterprise and good to go, and like all of them. And yet he's so just, I don't know, a fuddy-duddy. I don't know. It's just weird.
It's such an interesting point because if you look at, I mean, I know Kayla was half Klingon, but she did reject a lot of Klingon culture, so she wasn't like Lady Grilka, full on Klingon. And Dax actually points out, saying, how would you know? I've spent more time around Klingons than you ever have. Worf, he has a type. He goes for non-Klingon women and then expects them to be his version of what Klingon should be. So Worf doesn't have the courage. Oh, he'd kill me for saying that. To be around real Klingon cultures because he himself wouldn't measure up to that. So that comes with a lot of psychological baggage that Worf doesn't feel Klingon enough personally, so he will go for a non-Klingon woman to try and bring them up to his standard.
Well,
and he's just damaged.
Yeah. Well, no, I just, if you want to call it, he's controlling and manipulative. And unfortunately, he can't, to your point, he can't control a real Klingon female and even Kalar was really, she was really headstrong, right? And we've seen other full Klingon women being, very, they might be in the relationship, but they're very dominant in the relationship as well. Worf wants to rule over somebody, and he tries to mold all of his women that way.
So there's leaping into Voyager, there's the story in the episode where B'Elanna and Tom get married, Drive, where B'Elanna tells Neelix the story of her grandmother has a Klingon phrase called Mokta, which means bad match. And she was trying to weigh up her and Tom a bad match, which we know them because we love that relationship. So, Amy, you've just been very reflective there on your personal experiences, in terms of Mokta. I myself, I'm coming across quite preachy in this episode, and to reflect, I haven't always been this kind of emotionally intelligent. 20 years ago, my first partner and I I was horrible. I was very controlling, very possessive, and quite naturally and quite rightly, he left me, and I was in a horrible state. But even, certain things like aspects of behaviors and personality. He was a smoker. First thing I did when we got together as well. Well, you must give that up. I'm not going out with a smoker. The reality is, I shouldn't have gone for a smoker if I was that passionate about not being in a relationship with someone who smokes cigarettes. I should have restricted my kind of pool of men to those who don't. But just little things like that, trying to manipulate and change behaviors to mold someone into what I wanted. So maybe I'm down on Worf a lot because I'm actually down on myself for past transgressions. So I know there will be people who love Worf and are probably quite horrified at the way I am demonizing him. But yeah, it comes from places with me as well, that of where I've not been the perfect person.
We might put a Worf disclaimer out on this episode that people might. If you love Worf, don't listen to this one.
Worf's had some great episodes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think to summarize what you just said, though, Kelvin, is my adage and what I've learned, and this is what it's great for you to talk about who you were then and who you are now. It goes right back to we grow and we learn and we become different people, and everything informs who we are. But if your attitude in a relationship is I'll change them, you don't need to be in that relationship. If you can't accept somebody from who they are going in, then fundamentally you're the one that's flawed. So you need to not be there. And then honestly, it has a lot to do with why I'm still single, because I'm at that point in life where it's like I'm looking for somebody who lines up to what I'm looking for now. I'm not willing to settle, and I'm not going to try to change somebody, because I've been down that road and it doesn't go anywhere. So, but I'm to that point where I'd just rather be single than if it's not the right person. And I was laughing. There's this meme that's running around with Linda Evangelista, and it says something to the effect of, "I just want to sleep alone. I don't want to hear anybody breathing."
Oh yes, I've seen that.
And I'm like, oh, sis, I totally identify. Anyways.
I am loving this discussion, and my Mokta, is that how you say it? Mokta?
Yeah.
Definitely would be my marriage. Should not have gotten married because I was expecting him to change. Way young, and known that I was very religious Mormon, and this guy was not. But oh my gosh, I can't marry a non-Mormon. So he got baptized in October. We were married in November. And 3 months later, he comes to me and is like, yeah, this whole going to church and not drinking and not smoking, I can't live this. And he stopped going to church and picked up drinking and smoking, which I don't really think he ever quit. And it was just like a shock to me. I'm like, what? I didn't change you. So it was a very painful process of, I cannot change anyone. And like you, Christos, I get to the point where, yeah, if I can't change you, then I shouldn't be going out with you, right? Because it's that learning process of where you learn about yourself, right? But then I get to the balance of, do I give up too easily? Because I feel like, well, I can't change you, so I'm just going to give up. But is there something worth working through to find a compromise? Because with Jadzia and Worf, there were so many easy ways that they could have compromised their issues on Risa, but they didn't. And so, well, I guess they did, because they actually stayed together. But Christos, I'm going to ask you, like, do we give up too easily because we know the fact that we are not going to change anyone?
Yeah, I often question that. Like, did I let go of that too fast, too soon? Because I don't have to. I mean, I'm not
Yes.
financially dependent. I can take care of myself. I have a good job. I have good friends. I have good support. I have my Star Trek family. I'm like, I'm busy. So it's like, I feel like I quite, and sometimes I'll actually maybe revisit somebody and then, oh wait, that's why I left. That's why I didn't go through. But I do second guess myself sometime, maybe to your point. Because I don't have to. Mark,
What do you think, Mark?
I think for me, what I've learned, like especially like in this relationship that I've been in now for the past like 8 years, is that the only person that you can change in the relationship is yourself. So, maybe being less reactionary, maybe just processing, thinking about things, trying to see things from another perspective, trying to change yourself to make maybe the other person happy, and do trust, because trust was brought up in this episode too. Trust that the other person is doing what they can to make it work on their end. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of a leap of faith there you have to sort of to have when you're in a committed long-term relationship with somebody. It's that, okay, I'm trusting that they're doing their best and trying to do their best for this relationship, and I know that I'm trying and doing my best for me and for the relationship. And if it's still not good enough, well, it's not. And then at that point, you have to revisit things. But for me, like I have found that that is what's worked for me and worked for this particular relationship that I'm in.
Yeah. Yeah, I like the idea of you learn something about yourself from every relationship. So if you have a breakup, I don't like it when people say, well, that was a waste of 3 years of my life. I
Oh,
don't think so.
absolutely.
You
Yeah.
always learn something. My next relationship after that toxic one, I went completely the other way. And I was non-reactionary to things. I wouldn't start arguments. I wouldn't be controlling. But that resulted in there was no arguments. I would bottle everything up, and we all know what happens when you do that. You get very passive aggressive, and you don't address issues, and things go stale. And that relationship failed just because I was, it's like someone took out my emotion chip. I just didn't really react. So
A good
we're all
discussion,
on this
even
journey.
a good discussion, even a heated one, can be beneficial sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just need that. It's like if you think about a thunderstorm with like lightning,
Yes.
it's like they say that the lightning actually cleans the oxygen, it cleans the air. It's kind of the same thing. It's like in a relationship, every once in a while you need the lightning bolts to come down, and then it clears out the air and everybody can breathe after. It's okay, we've said what
Well,
we needed to say. We can move on.
in work, I always this isn't it's a philosophy from Six Sigma, which I use a lot at work, and there are 4 stages to a team formation, and this could be, and I see this in friend groups, I see this at work, but it's form, storm,
norm.
perform.
Yeah.
So a lot of times you have to go through that rough patch and kind of learn really who everybody is and get on the same page, and then things normalize, and then the team really starts to perform, and
Yeah.
I love that Kelvin's heard it before.
Oh, I've been on all of these management model courses.
Well, it's like, and you're right. There's always, it's always the, flavor of the week with these things. But it's funny. I always try to take a little something. I mean, that might have been a 100-page book, but there was one page that spoke to me, and
absolutely.
I take a walk away from that.
So we've all had our relationship counselling for the week.
Yeah.
And so in perfect balance, I'm going to kind of just finish with topic 3 here of, was Worf right? Maybe the ends don't justify the means, like you said, Christos. He definitely should have been court-martialed for what he did. But was Worf right in terms of, has the Federation gone soft? Were the essentialists kind of on the right track, but obviously just went about it very wrong? Were all the Federation children burying their head in the sand when really they should have been paying attention to the Borg ship that was on its way to Earth in the same year, and the pending Dominion assault, and the Klingon war that they were right in the middle of? Is it a time for a holiday?
No, I think this is where fundamentally the episode falls short, because this doesn't make sense. If everything else, when you leave and you just delete this episode, Where do you see the Federation soft? We're on heightened alert. The Jem'Hadar, we've had the Borg conflict going on for years. Earth just had their whole big, the changeling scare. Everything's at high alert and running high tense. Like people are ready. Yeah, and Risa's just a vacation planet. If you went to Earth and tried to make this analogy, maybe you'd have an episode if you could show it. But you go to the vacation planet where people are just at for a couple of days at a time and try to say because you have it's like going to Walt Disney World and saying we've gone soft, United States. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And I think this is why this episode fails so bad, because it's being forced so hard to try to make a story where I can't believe as a viewer that what you're even saying. I don't see it.
I just thought about South Florida, to be honest. I thought about Miami. I thought about the weird sort of juxtaposition of having, so many Republicans, invest in Florida, and then there's Miami and Key West and all these fun party places. Yet, in their backyard is all these, Republican zealots, religious zealots and stuff that are just, trying to condemn everything about that whole part of the country. So
Yeah.
I don't know. That's what was on my mind while watching the episode.
I like that, but and maybe it goes back to what's his name here? Pascal Fullerton, whatever his name is. I just remember him from being from Santa Barbara. Half the time these people who speak the loudest are the ones doing exactly all the things that they're preaching against. Mark, you mentioned politicians. How many politicians get busted? How many politicians scream about the gays and you find out they're on Grindr? And and it's true. I mean, the people who scream the loudest are usually the ones who are doing it themselves. And Amy has something to add to that.
Yeah, just real quick. There's this TikTok or whatever, reel or whatever that's going around where it's like, okay, is this NBA or NFL? And they go through like terrible things. So many got arrested in this, so many indecent did it, so many inappropriate relationships. Like they go through all these things. And this guy's like, oh, well, that's got to be the NBA. Oh, that's the NFL. No, it's the Senate and Congress men serving our country. Like this is not, the sports players, they're going to do this debauchery things, but we hold our congressmen and senators to such high standards that they would never do anything like that. No, it was all them. Disgusting.
Yep.
Well, getting back to what you were asking, Kelvin, about has the Federation gone soft? I think it's wrong of the essentialists, or is that what they are? To be going to a soft place and saying, oh, you're soft. Well, duh, that is the purpose of Risa. This is a vacation. We talked about it at the top of the episode. This is not a place where people, can sustain and live and like it's a temporary thing. So to come in, no Dominion is going to attack Risa first. Right? No Romulan's going to come and attack Risa first. It doesn't, there's no,
it's not strategic. It's not strategic at all.
So you're coming in saying, oh, you guys are soft. Yeah, that's the point of this planet. And to Christos's point, if you look at the episodes surrounding this, no, they're, amping up. Like this is not a soft time and the Federation has not gone soft. And I'm really surprised that Worf took the bait, because wasn't it Julian and Jadzia that was like, did he just insult us? And it's like, yeah, you did. And to the point, Worf did wrong. You can't sabotage against a Federation planet and not have any consequences. Like that is totally illogical. And his if-then statement has led me and inspired me that I am going to be doing in Amy's Math Moments for our patrons soon on this logical statement of if then. And I'm really excited to do that.
Yeah. The fundamental flaw here is that it's not believable that Worf would become so radicalized so fast. That kind of thought, I mean, yes, it does. So there's something to it that appeals to him when he gets handed the iPad in the beginning, but to get to the point that he's willing to sabotage and go against law and order and the oath he took to the Federation, it's too fast. I mean, you would need to spread this out over several episodes to believe that he would be willing to go to terroristic activity to get his point across.
But is that actually what happened with Worf? Was Worf not so affected by what's going on with him and Jadzia? And this was an opportunity to bring the holiday to an end and to kind of to assert control again.
He is effectively a terrorist in this episode, and that's very hard. That's very direct, but it's true. And how do you go from a commander in the Federation on shore leave when you got your oath to the Federation? How many times have we seen him throw people? Like he's literally head of security on the Enterprise and whatnot. That is his job, is to uphold the law, to quickly become the guy who's breaking it, and then there's no consequence at the end.
Yeah.
It's just it suspends disbelief, and it's fundamentally which makes this episode one of DS9's worst episodes.
Well, I think you said it right. Worf is a terrorist in the Federation here at this point, and in his relationship with Jadzia. He's trying to force her to do something she doesn't want to do.
I think I just got our episode art all figured out, guys. There needs to be like a picture of Worf with a wanted sign, terrorists, and
Yeah,
Mark, there you go.
We're definitely going to get some comments on that, some of these views, aren't we?
A little marketing there for you guys.
I feel, in terms of the question, has the Federation gone soft? Everything, I'm by profession a risk assessor. That's I work in health and safety, and risk perception. If we didn't do something because we were afraid of a consequence, then you wouldn't get out of bed in the morning and you wouldn't live. There would always be something can always go wrong. So if you're overly risk averse, like Fullerton and the Essentialists saying, how dare you down tools and have a holiday? You should be on alert constantly because an attack might happen. Then that is like the extreme of being completely risk averse. So yeah, you are allowed to have downtime. You are allowed to recharge your batteries because you can't be on red alert, quite literally, all the time. Otherwise, it's like lower decks when they take away the buffer time, everyone would go mad because you can't get everything done. So yeah, I think we're all in agreement there. The Federation has not gone soft, and far from it. So, what do we think about some assimilations and regenerations for the episode?
I do like Jadzia calling out Worf's bullshit. I think that deserves an assimilation.
Yeah, totally.
Very good.
Totally.
Agreed. Yeah, and I will assimilate. I don't think it's here in some of the ones that have been pointed out. I like that we got a little bit of Worf backstory to explain why he's cautious, why he's reserved. I mean, I feel like it's pigeonholed into the script to make it there, but it does help understand Worf overall, why he is not fully embraced the Klingon.
I am totally on board with this Bajoran separation ritual, and that needs to be practiced. And I think from here on out, whenever I get into a relationship, I'm going to say, listen, at the end, we are going to do this if there is an end. And I'm going to make them promise me to do that because you're right. You learn in a relationship, and I want to be dating someone who has the maturity, emotional maturity, to recognize the good, leave on good terms, and be done with it. Like that I want that in all of my relationships. I feel like I've actually done that with a couple of the past ones.
Yeah.
Breakup sex?
Congratulations. We're going to have a little meeting when we break up very peacefully, and I tell you we're breaking up because you talk with your mouth full.
But there's breakup sex, right? Is that what we're all agreeing on?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's some
nice.
things,
it's actually
left
quite.
undone.
It's a little bit European.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I like the retcon that they did in this episode with Curzon's death, and they said death by Jamaharon. I just love that Arandis basically shagged Curzon to death.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
I'm going to go with loving the Risa effect on Star Trek conventions. And, there's always a Risa party on the Star Trek cruise. And people love to, some of the gays in space things we've been to have had the guys dressed up as Risa and the girls too. And I kind of think of that as like, hey, if I'm going to like one of my favorite places to go to is Puerto Vallarta. And that's kind of like very Risian to me. So, yeah. So yes, very, it's kind of adopted itself into our fandom culture.
It's a
and I love
culture.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We did get a little bit of LGBTQI representation in this episode, which was very sparse back then. So the kind of the jealousy scene with Worf when he was seeing Arandis and Jadzia together in the pottery. Not very happy that these two women were supposedly being quite intimate. It wasn't intimate. They were playing with pottery, let's face it, with clay.
I wonder if they got some pointers from Demi Moore and Patrick Swayze. That's all I'm saying.
It was very, not even 10 years later.
Right.
So, regenerations. Where are we on this?
Well, I think we spent the last 45 minutes talking about regenerations, but
well, here's one. When Julian asked the essentialist leader, they were talking and Julian leans over and is like, does he really believe what he's saying? Oh, I'm sorry you don't have a Troy on your show to answer that question. I'm just saying. I miss Troy.
We need an empath.
Yeah.
We do. I'm curious to know if anyone picked up on this scene. So the scene at the very beginning where they're in the Replimat with Captain Sisko and Odo, it didn't seem like it was written for Odo. Now, I know Odo was a humanoid at this point. He'd had his shape-shifting took away from him. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe that explains him sat there drinking a coffee. But he just seemed too happy, gossipy. Mm-hmm. I feel that scene was written for Kira. And because Nana was literally having the baby while this episode was being filmed, I think they switched it out to Odo, and it just didn't fit.
We've seen that before, like at the end of Picard, where we feel like Tuvok's lines were meant for Janeway.
Yes.
And I get exactly what you're saying here. And you know what? I watched this episode this morning, and I thought it was weird that Odo and Sisko were sitting around having a coffee shooting the shit. It felt weird. I literally had that thought, and I'm glad you have this in here because, and you're right. Nana Visitor gave birth right in the middle of this episode, and Siddig apologizes. Basically, I've read the DS9 companion. His head was not in the game this whole filming of this episode. He wanted to be with Nana the whole time, and he was kind of forced to be on set, and his head was not in the game in the making of this episode by his own admission.
But I think that comes across in the acting, and it actually helps the performance because while he's there, he's supposed to be distracted by all of these sights and all these pleasures. So it kind of works that he'd be a little distracted.
Yeah, but
I guess so.
But it was definitely a little bit. Some of the circumstances of this episode are a little weird.
This episode always stands. I like the episodes where you don't get scenes on the bridge. I think they're always quite special episodes. So we had family in Next Gen. We had someone to watch over me in Voyager. And here there's no scene in Ops. There's very little on Deep Space Nine. There's just the Replimat scene at the beginning and the launch bay for the shuttle bay for the runabouts. But there's no O'Brien, no Kira, no Jake. It's very light on the normal content.
I always find it a little funny when at the conventions and whatnot, and the actors get up there and they talk about, they're 18-hour days for 26 weeks, but there are literally full episodes like this one where I bet you Avery Brooks worked a half a day on this episode, maybe, and probably had more time off. And we know why Nana's not there, and that was work in itself. But O'Brien, Jake, there's whole episodes that on TNG that Troy's in one scene, Beverly's in one scene, and so it's like, you guys got some breaks in there too.
Well, I didn't know that Nana was having a child and that Siddig was, you must work. that doesn't hold up well. I mean, men have a right to be at the birth.
Yeah.
That is sexist, and that was wrong back then. And I'm glad things are changing now.
Yeah,
Mm.
well, yeah, they are changing whatnot, but it's also that's almost like that's Hollywood, right? I mean,
The show
people,
must go on.
the show must go on. I mean, and kudos to some of these women. I think Nana, Gates McFadden, and Roxanne Dawson have all been pregnant while filming, and I mean, if you and working right up until the end too. So I give them a lot of credit for some of the things that must have been much harder to be 9 months pregnant and say the host and still have to pull those love scenes off, for example, for Gates and Nana worked right up until this episode, and so did like I said, we all get to see some nice uniforms or nice big jackets, but
Yeah.
other than that, they're still doing their job.
And shout out to Sonequa as well. She was also included in the pregnant actors list. Okay,
Yes.
let's head over to some trivia for the episode. Mark, do you want to start us off?
Yes. Nana Visitor gave birth to her son Django on the 16th of September 1996 during the filming of this episode. Hence her absence. So that is something that we discussed. But something I noticed while watching this episode is that Lita, who's Bajoran, and has a very similar sort of cropped hairstyle as Nana. Like they look, especially in the same color hair. I was like, they do look kind of similar. And he was paired with her, and I just found that kind of interesting. But anyway, that
Yeah.
was a side note.
I love Lita's hair in this episode. I think it looked amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. This episode was directed by Renee Auberjonois, and I will just read you a little quote here from the Star Trek companion DS9. Quote, "It was not my happiest time as a director," end quote.
So, in the scene where Worf walks in on Lita and her Rysian companion in the purple mesh tank top, Lita was originally naked in a bathtub. I did not know that Trek would have done this. This is evident in the original 30-second promotional spot available on StarTrek.com. Chase Masterson said in an interview, "We originally shot the scene on a closed set with very little clothing. Then, and I'll never forget this day, I got called into Rick Berman's office and he told me, we have to reshoot the massage scene because it's too sexy for Star Trek." So Rick Berman pulled the plug on that. Okay.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
Yeah.
kind of almost lends with that last one too.
It does. We've got some interesting, although be it quite cryptic trivia here, that it was filmed on a Malibu beach this episode, and there was some production problems because Terry Farrell isn't able to spend prolonged periods in direct sunlight. Whether that is some kind of medical condition or just part of her personal preference as an actress. And former model as well. The producers forgot to bring a shelter for Terry to stand under for the scene. So Renee himself had to go out and hunt one down and put it together himself to protect his castmate from the sun. And I think that is really sweet, but also quite shambolic for the production.
Yeah, well, and to go a little further into that, Renee went on to say, even though I'd mentioned it at the production meetings, so I personally was running around building a tent that she could stand under so we could shoot her scenes.
Yeah. So, in the eyes of Robert Hewitt Wolf and Ira Stephen Bear, the main reason the episode failed was because of restrictions placed upon how they would be about sexuality. This was a show that was supposed to be examining sex, but it wasn't allowed to actually show any sex. As Wolf explains, kids watch the show, and in some markets, it airs at 5 o'clock. That meant we couldn't show skin, so there was no sex. It became a totally asexual show. And once that happened, the whole thing got flushed down the toilet because none of it made sense anymore. Interesting.
What a way to end and sum up. It just made it sanitized Risa.
Yeah.
Well, it's true because like the inspiration for this episode was the writers they were discussing the themes of a play by Eugene O'Neill called A Moon for the Misbegotten, a play that in which the characters allow drunkenness, sex, and religious fervor to carry them through to tragic endings. So that was what literally led to this episode being written. And then to what Amy just read there, you had to abandon all of it because of it being a family show airing at 5 p.m. It's like it was the wrong content for Star Trek, or the rules that were, I mean, this probably would get made now, but if they wanted to, the original story could get made now, but not in the late 90s.
Absolutely. So, considering this and weighing this episode in our theme as shore leave, what are some of our final thoughts? Do we think this episode did a good job of shore leave in comparison to the episode Shore Leave, 2 Days and 2 Nights, and Ways You Do? So what do we think? Christos, do you want to start us off?
I'll keep it short and sweet. Like I know, and in terms of the other episodes that we have followed on this, I would probably pick Ways Douche as my favorite.
Wonderful. How about you, Mark?
Needed more Quark.
Quark
That's how I feel about this episode.
Yeah.
There was too much heaviness to this episode. The religious zealots are uncomfortable. I don't know. Just this is definitely one of those ones that when it's coming up on my watch list, I kind of skip over most of the time because it's just very icky. I'm not that into it. But if it had more Quark, it'd be a pretty cool episode. I want to see the Umaks.
Yeah, Mark, this episode made me even want to see those really unseen scenes that were filmed for Insurrection, in which Quark goes to the Baku planet and he wants to open up a resort there. That was literally filmed, and we've never seen it for Insurrection. But this is the Quark I would imagine in those scenes, trying to be there.
Final thoughts for you, Amy?
Gosh, there are a lot going through my head. And I was just thinking, we didn't even talk about the Quark scenes. Like he's like, all right. And he gets a girl on each arm and she automatically goes to rub his ear. You know how that annoys the crap out of me. I'm like, so the first time you meet someone, you're going to go and rub his. No, I won't say that.
Have you been to a gay bar, Amy?
She's never been in a dark room, that's for sure.
Okay, all right. Fair point. Maybe, yeah, okay. All right. Well, maybe I might have to rethink that. But we do get to see a lot of different activities going on Risa in this, right? We've got, and I was thinking, who are these people that live here and are willing to just live in the moment every single second? Like, that's pretty darn amazing. I couldn't do it. That for me, Risa is temporary, and then I got to get back to real life. Sort of experienced it a little bit. Like, what do I do with myself since I retired? And I'm like, yeah, I got to get back to work a little bit. So it's interesting watching this episode where I am in my life right now. That I find this is really connected. So this is my favorite shore leave episode that we've covered so far because of this discussion that we've had.
Wonderful. And just to finish us off with me, I would go for 2 Days and 2 Nights from Enterprise. I think it did a much better job of showing, lads on a holiday, what they want, go to a nightclub, pick up a couple of girls. Hoshi had a holiday romance. Archer had all the holiday experience of going to the beach and the nice restaurants and a lovely apartment, and then obviously the crazy woman. But yeah, I think that was a much rounded, more... It made Risa look like somewhere I wanted to visit. This episode, it made it look really boring. Far from being a pleasure planet, it looked like some kind of kids' resort.
What shows are on BQN, you ask? Well, here's a rundown of some podcasts you might be interested in. All Good Things, a Star Trek Universe podcast covering all of Trek, hosted by Amy, Mark, Christos, and Kelvin. Bargain Bin Gamer, a YouTube show hosted by Davey, a self-proclaimed gamer who specializes in reviewing and showcasing affordable video games. If you're lost in the Delta Quadrant, check out The Captain's Couch, a Star Trek Voyager podcast hosted by Jeremiah sitting on Janeway's Ready Room couch. Cinema Z, a film discussion and review podcast showcasing films you probably missed but should definitely check out. Hosted by Mark, Matt, and Laz. Beam Aboard the Galaxy Class, a Star Trek Next Generation podcast covering all of TNG. Hosted by Amy, Joe, Rhea, and Kevin. History with the Szilagys, a snippet of historical events from around the world, hosted by Chrissie and Jason. For the newest Trek coverage, check out Infinite Diversity, hosted by Chrissie and Thad. Test your Trek knowledge with Trexperts Quiz, a Star Trek quiz show hosted and written by Davey. Union Federation, covering all things Star Trek and the Orville, which we all know is really a Star Trek show, hosted by Kyle, Kevin, Amy, and Haley. Spill the Tea with What's the Tea, Bev, a Trek current events and fan interview show hosted by Christos. And for our Patreon members, we have The Hive Mind, BQN's monthly roundtable discussion with hosts and listeners. It's Green, a cornucopia of topics hosted by Mark, and Amy's Math Moments, a quick look at math moments in Star Trek, hosted by Amy. We know you have a choice of podcasts to choose from, and we thank you for listening to BQN. Assimilate the audio.
Mark, do you want to tell the listeners where we're going next week to get them ready for some homework?
Do I? Well, we are going to be continuing with our Evolution of a Species series. This is going to be part 2, and we are going to focus this time on the enigmatic Q slash Trelane, which, I guess in canon now, they are the same. So, well, according to the books. So we'll go with that.
So we've got to watch a lot of Q episodes over the course of the week then. That's a big piece of homework for us, let alone the listeners.
Yay, and I've read a lot of those books, the Q Squared and the Q Continuum, the trilogy. So I'm excited about this.
Fab. We would love to hear what you thought of today's episode and hope you'll join our Facebook group, the BQN Collective, to continue our discussion there. You can also reach us at All Good Pod on Blue Sky. Make sure you follow the network on Blue Sky and Instagram at BQN Podcasts. We've partnered with our friends at Fandom Podcast Network, where you can find us by searching the master feed. So, Amy, where can people find you when you're not very calmly discussing the Bajoran act of separation?
Well, when I'm not doing that, and I definitely will be in the future, you can find me here in the network where I am also co-hosting Union Federation. And I am on that Twitter X place at Miss Amy Nelson, but my favorite place on Facebook, BQN Collective. So find us there. And Mark, where can people find you when you aren't deliberately destroying the atmospheric?
No, not a good one for me.
I know you would never do that. You want it always sunshiny and bright.
No, yeah. No, that would not be me. I'm also not conservative at all. No, Amy, I would insist on a redo, but we're running out of time, so I will just go with it. So yeah, I'm definitely not doing that. People can find me in the BQN Collective Facebook group. People can find me on Cinema Z. That's a podcast I do with some good friends where we talk about all kinds of different types of films. We just covered Dune, which was insanely popular, and we have so many downloads for that one episode, and it's not even been a week old yet. So if you haven't checked it out already, check it out. You can also find me on Blue Sky at MW207. And Christos, where can people find you when you are not going to one of those, clothing optional beaches?
You can find me on Facebook at the BQN Collective. You can find me on most socials at Greek Geek SD, and all around. Kelvin, where can people find you when you're not in a dark room in some club in Sitges?
Well, finding me in a dark room would be quite a task in itself. That's the entire point of a dark room. But when I'm not in a dark room, you can find me on the socials at Kelvin's Timeline or in Facebook World at the BQN Collective Facebook group.
Please hit the subscribe button on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a star rating and a written review. That helps others to find the show. You can also follow the entire network's podcast with our master feed by searching BQN.
At this time, we really want to thank our dear associate producers, Mahendran Radhakrishnan and Tim Cooper. A special thanks to Graham Kelly for our opening and closing music, and Mark for our artwork each and every week.
If you would like to help us keep all of our shows coming to you each week, you too can become a patron of the network on Patreon. We'll add you to the Hive Mind Facebook group so you can enjoy It's Green, Amy's Math Moments, and other network perks. With a monthly subscription of $5 or more, you can join our meetings on the Hive Mind Roundtable discussion on the second Saturday of each month. Visit patreon.com/BQN to get all the details and watch your messages.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you'll join us
As we search out
All good things.